Things that are really stressing me out right now is budget is number one. I've got to work out what are the compromises that need to be made. Still chasing down a bottle production slot. Still chasing down just making sure our cork supply chain is aligned for the time frames we've got. I've had to pull out of the Caterham Championship. So one of the things I absolutely love doing, I mean, the crash in Spa just and the broken drive shafts just absolutely ruined in my budget for the season. So a bit of a status check just about where we are on a range of things. From a budget standpoint, things are looking pretty tight. Got the costings in on things like the collector's box and the gift box, and yeah, it's putting a lot of pressure on the financial situation around the first release launch. I've got a fixed budget, and obviously, as I've mentioned, I've got a fixed time frame of when I'm going to, what I've got to do to get it launched. So, that's putting a lot of strain on the situation. Trying to explore different ways of possibly saving some cost, but what I really don't want to do is cut corners in terms of the importance of this first release. So trying to get that right, it's tricky. We're looking at for the gift box, which is, so we've got the collector's box, which is obviously the piece that we've put a lot of effort into in terms of the wooden display box case, whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, I want to put that in as something that when we ship it out to someone, there's a bit of the special theatre around a box, and in there we're going to have the certificate of authenticity, and then ultimately all the way down into the whiskey. So doing all those things when you're only doing 1,000 is pretty hard. If you're doing 20, 30,000 of these things, then the costs come right down. But when you're just doing small numbers, and I know 1,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're doing small numbers, the costs are pretty high. Other things that we've got going on, so later this week, we're going to, on Thursday night, release a video I did with Liam, our head distiller, where we did the pilot blend. We just pulled the 4 casks out that we have chosen for our first release, and we pulled together a pilot blend because putting in an award submission for the first release, that's actually shipping today. So we had to create a little submission bottle, which is this here, in terms of just basically putting the liquids together. So sneak preview is that's actually our first release liquid in there, and it is really nice, and hopefully as many of you get to try it. But this isn't obviously our finished bottle, as I've shown you in the other ones, but this is just a way of us putting all the technical detail on there and just putting it in one of the bottles that we had available to make the submission. So this is what our first release is going out as. It's called the first release pilot blend. It is essentially our first release liquid, and fingers crossed it'll do all right in the awards. What else have we got going on? So chasing down a few more founders to get more in the founder series. The response on that has been fantastic. The one with Dan from the Cotswold Distillery went up last Friday, and has had good reaction and good response so far. It's really interesting to see the difference between the two that we've done so far, with Andrew down at the English, where he's come very much from essentially a family business to grow into what it is. And then you've got Dan, who's come at it more, a bit like me, from a finance outsider perspective, both outsiders, but coming at them and thinking about it very, very differently in terms of, Andrew thinking about multi-generational legacy style thinking, from farming and forestry sort of background, and then Dan coming at it from a financial, rational perspective, as well as the irrational of basically making a whiskey anyway. So it's interesting to see those two. So if you're interested in just at least looking at how people think about these things and startups and different mentalities, just have a look at those two and see the difference between Andrew and Dan. got a conversation with Max Vaughan from Wireworks, which is recorded the other week. That'll come out next week. And Max comes at it from another perspective. Max and I both actually started our careers with KPMG all those years ago, different parts of the world, but still with the 4 blue squares. And Max comes at it from again a different perspective as well. So it's interesting to see sort of how we've approached it, how I've approached it, and how those guys have gone about it, and the challenge that is English whiskey. So there's some unique things to be done in all of that. But I think the main thing, the things that are really stressing me out right now is budget is number one. I've got to work out what are the compromises that need to be made, what compromises shouldn't be made in terms of the end product for our first release. I then have to, the second thing really stressing me out is just the timeline. So still chasing down a bottle production slot, still chasing down just making sure our cork supply chain is aligned for the timeframes we've got. We signed off the technical details of that last week in terms of the precise sizing of the cork for the bore, for the exact bottles that we've had made. So make sure there's tight seal, no leaks. Samples for the labels, just the colour on the actual paper should be arriving this week. And chasing down today is one of the things I've got to do today, is basically chase down this gift box and just see what options we've got in terms of a more cost-effective solution that doesn't compromise the premium side of things. So a lot of things going on, but the one that's really stressing me is budget at the moment. Got to deliver this on the budget that we've got allocated. Can't go beyond that, but also need to set the business up and set 3 writings up for the future. So one of the things I've been doing in the background is working on the release strategy that we go beyond this first release. Although the first release is really important, then what we do after that in terms of 3 writings in the market and the right level of liquid to release, the right structure of how we want to do that. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but I've got this idea essentially with playing with the concept of 3. So the idea is we'll have 3 collections of 3 bottles that'll be the next releases over time, pacing those out, making them a much more approachable price point. Obviously the first release is very, very high elevated, but the next releases will be about basically getting 3 writings out and available and people trying it and enjoying the different flavours that we can bring. Each of those expressions will be playing around with the same base spirit, the same distiller's beer, but then just doing a little bit of exploration of the wood and how our spirit reacts with different woods. And when I say woods, I mean the kind of cask, but we're also looking at exploring whether there's some interesting woods in terms of the actual wood that we could explore. Most of it is American oak still, but there's some French oak and other things in there that we're trying. But in the various sort of explorations of fortified wines and other interesting things, just trying to find what is that perfect long-term sweet spot for a 3 writings whiskey that puts it in a place where we want to get to. One of the things that we talk about is just ultimately what do we want to do longer term. There's sort of 2 pathways. A lot of English whiskies have gone down a route of trying to get to like Cotswold called it a signature release, and I think the Lakes have done something similar, where they're trying to get to a non-age expression and just have a sort of a liquid expression. But then you have obviously the Scottish industry and a lot of things around the world have got the age statement strategy, where you're going out to whether it's 5, 8, 10, 12, 20, whatever years old. Trying to find what's right for 3 writings in there is interesting. I like the idea of the age statements. It's interesting. I'd be interested in what people think is the right way to go. Everyone seems to have been trained and conditioned on the idea that the age statement is the thing that you want, whether that's when you put a bottle down on the table with your friends, that's a status thing. or whether or not it's actually about the liquid quality is what really people care about. So trying to find places where the three writings really shows up beautifully and what's the best strategy for each of those things. So, I think I'm erring on this side of, I think where three writings needs to go over the next 10 years is to get to a consistent release of age statements, but those age statements are particular expressions of the liquid. So be that a particular finish or a double maturation or whatever it is for a particular age statement, because ultimately you don't want to fall into the trap of just having just so many forms of whiskey that the consumer could just get totally lost and totally confused. I think during this next few years, where we can really try and get people to explore what is three writings, but also enable us to explore how this liquid over time is developing with different casks to work out what is the best solutions. The one that has stood out and was recommended by our master blender Ron was White Port. I tasted that the other day when we were doing the pilot blend, and it's absolutely spectacular. The flavour characteristic, the match between our spirit and the White Port cask makes something truly spectacular. So I think there's something in that there will be an element of that being a core part of what three writings is in the long term. It's also something that not many people have done, but I think that's a function of not just because it's different, but actually because it complements the flavour notes in our spirit a lot better. So we'll play around with that and see where we get to. Yeah, and the other thing is just with where we are with everything going on and just with the costs, I've had to pull out of the Caterham Championship. So one of the things I absolutely love doing, I mean, the crash in Spa just and the broken drive shafts just absolutely ruined in my budget for the season. Just with the amount of time and effort going on, I've just had to make the very, very tough decision. It took me ages to get to this place of basically pulling out. Hopefully I'll be back, but just with everything going on right now, just can't afford it. Don't have the time. So hopefully, three riding can be a great success, and I can get back to racing Caterhams, something I absolutely love doing. But so for the rest of this season, unfortunately, it was going to be a part of this content series, was going to be basically following that Caterham Championship all through the year. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to bow out after 2 rounds. Had a great round in Croft, where got 3 4th places and 3 firsts in the races in the AM class. And then unfortunately, Spa just went all wrong. Ended with the car on the wall through no fault of my own, basically failure of the Caterham throttle cables. That's ruined the season. So that's game over for 2026. Hopefully we can get back in 2027.